September 2000, Dallas, Texas. It is one of those sweltering late summer days where the heat radiates off the asphalt like a physical weight. But on the 27th floor of the Renaissance Tower, the air is freezing. This is the headquarters of Blockbuster Video, the inner sanctum of the most powerful entertainment retailer on Earth. The carpets are plush, the walls are lined with movie posters, not the paper ones you get at the cinema, but pristine prints encased in gold and polished steel frames. Everything about this place screams old money, power, permanence. In the waiting room, two men are sitting on a leather sofa that probably cost more than their company's entire monthly marketing budget. They are out of place. They aren't wearing the custom-tailored Italian suits that dominate these hallways. They are wearing wrinkled chinos and polo shirts. They smell like economy class and anxiety. Their names are Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph. They are the founders of a tiny, chaotic startup called Netflix, and they are absolutely terrified. They aren't here to conquer the king. They are here to surrender. They are bleeding cash. Their investors are panicked. The dot-com bubble has just burst, wiping out trillions of dollars in wealth overnight, and Netflix is next on the chopping block. They have one play left, a Hail Mary pass. They're going to walk into that boardroom and ask John Antioco, the CEO of Blockbuster, a man known as a retail genius, to save them. They don't know it yet, but they are about to walk into the most expensive meeting in the history of American business. To understand the sheer absurdity of this meeting, you have to look at the numbers. In the year 2000, Blockbuster wasn't just a store. It was a ritual. They had 9,000 locations worldwide. They employed 60,000 people. A Blockbuster membership card was more common in American wallets than a library card. The revenue was nearly $6 billion a year. They were the blue and yellow ticket to Hollywood. And Netflix? Netflix was a disaster. They had about 300,000 subscribers, but the math wasn't working. Shipping DVDs back and forth through the mail was expensive. For every dollar they brought in, they were spending $2. They were on track to lose $57 million that year alone. They were burning through cash so fast that Hastings and Randolph had stopped sleeping. They were a gnat flying into the windshield of a semi-truck. But they had an idea, a partnership. The plan was simple. Blockbuster buys Netflix. Netflix becomes Blockbuster.com. Hastings and Randolph would run the online division, handling the messy logistics of the internet, while Blockbuster focused on what they were good at, running stores. It was a perfect marriage. Blockbuster had the brand, Netflix had the tech. But as the heavy mahogany door swung open and the secretary ushered them in, Reed Hastings felt a knot in his stomach. The room was cavernous. The table was made of glass and wood, long enough to land a plane on. And at the head of that table sat John Antioco. Antioco was a legend. He had turned around Circle K. He had saved Taco Bell. He was a brick-and-mortar guy, a general of retail. He didn't look at Hastings and Randolph with curiosity. He looked at them with the polite boredom of a man who has far more important things to do, like planning his next yacht trip or counting his stock options. He waved them to their seats. The execution had begun. The meeting starts, and Mark Randolph takes the lead. He's the salesman. He leans in, trying to project confidence he doesn't feel. He walks them through the vision. The future is online, he says. People love movies, but they hate the drive. They hate the out-of-stock signs. Let us handle the back end. You guys keep the stores. We will rebrand our entire company to Blockbuster Online. It's a brilliant pitch. It solves Blockbuster's biggest weakness. They had zero presence on the web. But when Randolph said, "We can help you transition to a subscription model," what John Antioco heard was, "We can help you delete $800 million of pure profit from your balance sheet." The pitch winds down. The room goes silent. The air conditioning hums. John Antioco leans forward. He puts his elbows on the table. He looks Reed Hastings dead in the eye. Okay, it's an interesting idea, but if we were to buy you, what are we talking? What's the number? This is it. The moment that splits the timeline of history. Reed Hastings knows the number is high. Netflix is worth maybe half of it on paper. But he needs the cash to pay off the investors. He needs a win. He clears his throat. $50 million. For a second, nobody moves. And then John Antioco smiles. It's not a warm smile. It's the smile a parent gives a toddler who just said they want to be an astronaut. The general counsel, Ed Stead, doesn't even try to hide it. He lets out a chuckle. Then Antioco delivers the verdict. He doesn't negotiate. He doesn't counteroffer at $30 million. He doesn't say, let me check with the board. He simply says, the dot-com hysteria is completely overblown. The internet is a fad. He pauses, letting the words hang in the freezing air. They were laughed out of the room. The meeting lasted less than an hour. Blockbuster essentially told them, go play with your little website. The adults are talking. Blockbuster missed the deal of the century because they ignored the data staring them in the face. Don't make the same mistake with your own time and money. Now back to the flight home. On the flight back to California, the shame in the cabin was palpable. They had just been humiliated by the biggest player in the game. They had spent thousands of dollars on a private plane they couldn't afford just to be told they were worthless. Mark Randolph recalls looking over at Reed Hastings. He expected to see a broken man. Instead, he saw a man plotting a murder. Well, shit, they don't want us, Randolph said. Hastings turned to him, his eyes hard. No, they don't. So now we're going to have to kick their ass. That laughter in the boardroom, it became the fuel for everything that followed. They landed in California and went to war. They stopped trying to sell the company and started trying to build a monster. The algorithm. They doubled down on their recommendation engine. If they couldn't carry every movie like Blockbuster, they would use code to convince you to watch the movies they did have. The queue. They made the addiction digital. You always had a movie waiting. And the pivot. And years later, when streaming technology finally caught up, they didn't hesitate. They burned their own DVD business to the ground to build the streaming platform. Why? Because they remembered what Antioco said. The internet is a fan. They bet their lives that he was wrong. It took 10 years for the joke to stop being funny. By 2004, Antioco realized his mistake. He tried to launch Blockbuster online. He even tried to kill the late fees. But it was too little too late. The board fired him. Then came 2008, the financial crisis, and then the death blow. Streaming. While Blockbuster was arguing with landlords about rent for their 9,000 stores, Netflix was beaming movies directly onto PlayStations and iPads. Blockbuster was anchored to the physical world. Netflix was in the cloud. In 2010, exactly 10 years after that meeting, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy. They had $900 million in debt. Their stock, which traded at $30 a share, was delisted. The blue and yellow signs were ripped down from strip malls across America, leaving ghostly outlines on the brick. And Netflix? Today, Netflix is worth over $250 billion. They don't just rent movies, they are Hollywood. They win Oscars. They define culture. There is one Blockbuster left, just one, in Bend, Oregon. It sits there like a gravestone, a monument to arrogance. John Antioco isn't a villain. He was a smart man, a successful executive. But he made the classic mistake of the powerful. He fell in love with his own success. He thought the way the world was the way it would always be. $50 million. That's the cost of a mid-budget rom-com. For that price, Blockbuster could have owned the future. Instead, they bought their own extinction. The next time you open Netflix and hear that ba-doom sound, remember the boardroom in Dallas, remember the cold air, and remember the laughter. Because in the end, history doesn't care about your quarterly earnings. It only cares about who saw the future coming and who blinked. This is Red Ink History. Subscribe, because the line between an empire and a memory is thinner than you think.